Today I'd like to do a quick out-of-cycle review of this book. It's BIBLOS, the Bible. It's entirely in Greek. This is one of those print-on-demand books. I ordered it the day it was printed, and it arrived here the following day. To give you a sense for the dimensions, I measured it only in metric units. It's 231 millimeters tall, 167 millimeters wide, and 37 millimeters thick. Here it is compared to my Oxford Brevier Blackface that I did an unboxing video on a couple of months ago. Much larger than the Oxford Brevier Blackface. This is a book that has comparable contents. It has the Old New Testaments and the Apocrypha. This is the New Oxford Annotated Bible in the Revised Standard Version with the Apocrypha. Similar in thickness. The Oxford is not as tall and it's not as wide. It's a full-size hardback Oxford Study Revised English Bible. I recently picked this up used because I would like at some point to add the Revised English Bible to my translation continuum. So, in terms of height, BIBLOS is a little bit shorter, and it's text-wise it's about the same width. The boards on the lower book are wider. We gave the dimensions. Let's look inside at the format. This book is entirely in Greek, and you're looking at the book of Amos in Greek here. 2 text columns. Each column is 63 millimeters wide. I count about 60 characters per line, and there are as many as 66 lines per page. So on a page where there are no gaps, like those two, you would have 66 lines. The page dimensions are identical to the book dimensions. The characters appear to be printed in a very nice dark black ink, although they are somewhat small. Margins, top of the page, I get 18 to 22 millimeters. Bottom is about 8 millimeters. The inner can be as much as 22. That's just a little under an inch. And the outer is about 8 millimeters. Not very much at all. The font is not shaped identically to, say, the symbol font by any means, because the uppercase characters are about the same size as a 7-point symbol case font. The lowercase are about 7.5. Line height is about 3.11 millimeters, and so that equates to about 8.8 points. So as you can see, the line spacing is quite generous. I think it's sufficient for this sort of width of the column. Verse numbers, as you can see, are in the text. So here's verse 9. The text is not line matched, which I've been able to tell by holding up the paper to light. But it really doesn't need to be, because this paper, as we will see, is relatively thick and opaque. Go to the New Testament. We're in Matthew's Gospel now. And another thing you notice right away is that there are no references at all, and there are no notes at the bottom of the page or anywhere else on the page. It's just the text of the Bible in Greek. Let's talk about the paper. Sheet thickness is 113 micrometers, so I estimate the paper weight at 103 GSM. It is a very matte surface, very little luster or gloss to it at all. So it's extremely nice paper. And it's white. White. There is very little show through. Now, in places where you have bold printed, large bold print on a page, you can see it from the opposite page, such as here. But in general, you do not see the text from any other pages, from the opposite side of the page or from a previous page. When you look at this paper, there is no noticeable print non-uniformity. I have flipped through this several times, and I have not seen any variation at all. The text, as I mentioned, is Greek throughout. There is no English inside. There's an English preface, and there's a table of contents that has the books of the Bible in English. So at the back here you have a table of contents that is in alphabetical order in Greek, with the English translations of the book names given alongside. And then on the back of the book you have the books of the Bible in alphabetical order in English, with the names in Greek given alongside. There are no book introductions. So let's go to the beginning of a book to show you that. Here's Job. And also you'll notice that the books of the Bible do not begin on separate pages as a general rule. The book titles, this is Psalms. Book titles are in the center top of the pages. Page numbers are in the upper right-hand corners. There are no indications of page contents as one normally finds in a Bible, so there's nothing here that tells you that the last verse on the page is Job 1:21. Nothing to tell you that the first verse on the left-hand page is Psalm 142, verse 8. That information is not given. There are no headings in the text, so when the topic changes, there's nothing here to indicate to you that that's happened. There are chapter numbers that are very helpful, that give you a good idea of where you are. Hard to miss large, bold chapter numbers at the beginning of each chapter. The words of Christ in the New Testament, happily, are in black. There is no red in here. It's a nice, dark, although quite small font. We'll take a look at the font in comparison to some other choices here in a moment. And let's go to the beginning of the book. So here's the front cover. Again, it's paperback. It has sort of a rough finish to it. Feels a little sticky. That would not slide on a smooth surface very easily. Here we have the book title in both Greek and English. The Old Covenant according to the 70. The New Testament, New Covenant, the Patriarchal edition of 1904, and that's what it says in English at the bottom. Here is the copyright page. They say it's in the public domain, and you can use any part of it as you please. It gives you the ISBNs 13 and 10, printed in the United States of America by an Amazon company. Here's the preface in Greek and in English. And this is presenting the scriptures that have been handed down by the Christian Orthodox Church, the Septuagint and the Patriarchal Text of 1904-1912, the Antoniades text. They do not tell you which Septuagint that they are presenting. I don't see anything here that tells me which ones, but if you look at the different books where, say, Rahlfs gives multiple editions, it's fairly easy to tell which one they're using in each of those books. This is where you can find it online. You can actually find all the material that's in this book online in a very straightforward way. And then you have a third table of contents at the big front of the book, which shows the books of the Bible named in both Greek and English in the order in which they appear. So the last book is the Apocalypse of John. The first is Genesis, as one would expect. The New Testament begins with Matthew. No surprises. And then we start with the Old Covenant, and we get to Genesis. And the first thing I noticed when I got it, I opened it up and started reading. The first chapter of Genesis, and I got here to verse 4, and God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. So I'm in pencil there, you'll see my half upper brackets. I think that is some kind of a typo. That's an intrusion into the text. I've looked at Rahlfs. I've looked at online at Sweet's Cambridge Septuagint, and I don't see any indication of a textual variant there. So I immediately, upon opening the book, I find what appears to be a typo, and so I'm doubtful about the quality of the text elsewhere in the book. So I'm just now reminding you what Genesis 1:4 looks like here in this new Bible we're reviewing. It has this material inserted here between the two upper half brackets that I've inserted in pencil. And this is what the same verse looks like in Rahlfs Septuagint. And it's very straightforward. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. So that inserted material is not present in Rahlfs. Another question I had as I was reviewing the new book is which source text do they follow? They aren't clear at all as to what they're doing. In Rahlfs Septuagint, he prints Vaticanus on the left and Alexandrinus on the right here in the book of Joshua. And so if I go to Joshua in the New Bible, and I go to, we're in the 15th chapter, if I look at the 33rd verse, this name is spelled with an alpha, alpha sigma tau, alpha omega lambda. If I look at the same place here in the new book, I see the same spelling. It's about the fourth word in from the left of my thumb at verse 33. So it's pretty clear here, since this is Vaticanus, that in Joshua, the Greek Bible is following Vaticanus. Now another point where Rahlfs prints editions, various editions, here is in the book of Judges, and here he has Alexandrinus on top, up here, and Vaticanus down below. And again, you can tell that the new book is following Vaticanus. We look here in Judges, Alexandrinus says in or by the Lord at this point in verse 1, and Vaticanus says through the Lord. And what we have here is through the Lord. So again, we're following Vaticanus. In the book of Tobit, Rahlfs presents Vaticanus and Alexandrinus, a text based on them, above a text based on Sinaiticus. And the New Bible indicates that it is following codices B and A, so it's following generally the upper text here. I have noticed, just looking quickly through it, that occasionally the text in the New Bible here does follow the marginal reading in Rahlfs rather than the reading in the text. We do not have the book of Odes in our New Bible, and in general that's not much of a loss because most of this material appears elsewhere in the Bible. So here is an Ode of Moses in the Exodus, but one I do not find in the New Bible is the prayer of Manasseh here, which, as far as I can tell, does not appear at all in the New Bible. Here's a close-up of the font. We are in the book of Genesis. That's chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse 8 is here. And I'm going to put over the top Rahlfs Septuagint to show you how the fonts compare. Rahlfs is mostly in chapter 3 of Genesis. You can see that Rahlfs is Larger font, easier on the eye, superior line spacing. The disadvantage to Rahlfs is, of course, that it has only the Old Testament. Here you have both the Old and the New in a single volume. Here is United Bible Society's 5th edition Greek New Testament coming in on the right. You are somewhere in chapter 6 of Matthew's Gospel. Much larger font on the right, much easier to read. The spacing of the characters is far superior than it is in this new Greek Bible, where the characters are right up against each other. The tracking is very close in the book on the left. And then finally, here is the Tyndale House Greek New Testament in chapter 7 of Matthew. And again, a much easier reading experience on the right. So it seems to me that the only real advantage of having the book on the left is that you have the Patriarchal Text of the Greek New Testament in paper form that you can use when a computer isn't available. So that's pretty much all I'd intended for this quick review. I just wanted to show this because I'd been asked about it by a viewer in Europe who probably would have to pay a lot of postage to get this there. It's a glued binding. It does not lie flat. You have to hold it open. It's good to have one of these book stands that will hold the pages open for you. The print is tiny. Show through is essentially non-existent. You do not have a ghosting problem, and if you have young eyes, this would not be a problem. I can read it. I don't know how long I could read it, and I think I would prefer to use Rahlfs or Brenton's Septuagint for the Old Testament and read the New Testament from one of my separate New Testament editions. But it is a useful reference point to see how the Patriarchal Text of 1904-1912 differs. Let's look quickly here back at 1 John chapter 5, 7 and 8. This is the common Johanneum or Johanneum, and you'll notice that the Patriarchal Text does include the controversial insertion that's in the Textus Receptus and was in the Latin tradition, but it includes it in a separate and different font. And when I did a review of the Eastern Orthodox Bible New Testament a month or two ago, I found that the Patriarchal Text often follows the Textus Receptus, but that means about 30% of the time, about 70% of the time, it agrees more with the Hodges and Farstad majority text. Well, again, that's all I had intended for this video. I wanted to make it quite short. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you.